Welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at something from the Lord of the Rings verse. I know it's taken me a long time to do any Lord of the Rings stuff. I've had stuff on the back burner, I just haven't gotten around to it. But in today's episode, what we're going to be looking at is one of the most underappreciated weapon designs from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, first and foremost, the Lord of the Rings trilogy has some of the best fantasy weapon design that you have ever seen on the big screen. Like, it sets the gold standard, no joke. And maybe I'll talk about that in a future episode. But what we're going to be looking at today is one of the most underappreciated designs that doesn't really get talked about that much because it's not really a weapon. I mean, it's used as a weapon, but it's not the type of weapon that you would think, and that is Saruman's staff. But Saruman's staff is really interesting because obviously there's a lot of design cues that mirror, other things in the world. It is a fantastic, not only like fantasy designed type weapon, but it also has a lot of real world practicality that's kind of surprising. And that's not even including the magic aspect. Like, we're talking about real world stuff, so not even including the magic. Without that, it is like S tier in terms of its design. So, with that out of the way, let's get started with today's project. So the first thing that I needed for the staff was a bunch of flat steel bar and tubing. I created a small little paper template that I laid down and traced out, and then I got to the process of cutting it on the angle grinder. This took a long time to do, honestly. It was a lot of cutting and grinding, before finally moving on to the desk grinder and the belt sander. Now remember, I need to make 4 of these, it's not just making one, so I had to do this process 4 times over to get the amount that I needed to make the staff. So when all the spines of the staff are ready, it's now time to weld them all together. Why do I never get to do some easy welding? Why does it always have to be something complex? I essentially have to line up all 4 pieces so that they intersect and they're all even as well. So I'll simply just tack them together so that the shape stays before I go in and try and lay a thicker bead. Now, as you guys know, I am not a welder in the slightest, so these welds should be functional and it should hold together, but they are ugly. After the head is done, I attached it to the steel tubing, all that sort of stuff. I actually didn't have any paint left, so I had to use some acrylic paint to actually paint it black. I'm kind of out of stock of everything at the workshop at the moment. And then last but not least, I originally used a ping pong ball as the white gem in the middle of the staff. However, I did later change this to a wick because some reasons you'll see soon. But with that out of the way, let's get to the B-roll and then to the testing. I have waited ever since I was a young boy for this, and I made it so terrible. All right, let me get some contextual stuff out of the way. First off, this was the last project I had to do after a really big project. Like, I did a really big one, used all of my materials in the workshop, so I had nothing left. So this one suffered because of it. It's perfectly fine for today's episode, but it looks kind of shit. And I'll probably fix it up at some other point, but I didn't have enough time to do that before I got started with the episode. Anyway, that's why it doesn't look as nice as I would have hoped. With that out of the way, let's talk about Saruman's staff. Because first off, I've got a little bit of a yarn to tell, a tale to spin, or whatever. I think I got them around the wrong way. When I was a kid, right, after watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy, my favorite staff was Gandalf's. I loved his staff, and I liked his hobbit staff even more than any of the others because it looked like the flame, right? He is the wielder of the hidden flame or whatever. But Saruman's staff was the one for sale at my local game store. And every time after school, when I was, a little kid, right, I'd walk home and I'd look in this game store. Back then, game stores were more collectible stores than what you're thinking about in terms of game store, like a Warhammer store. Lots of collectibles, and in the window, they had a Saruman staff replica, one of the official licensed ones, and I always wanted it. But I could never have one. So I've been waiting to make one of these for a long time. That's essentially what I'm saying, and I'm happy that I have one. It looks a bit shit, but at some later point, I'll fix it up. I'll make it look nicer. Back to this. So today's episode is just more for fun, right? Like, it's a staff, it's a magical item. He uses it for magic. It does magic things. It's not a weapon, but it's actually a really good weapon as well, funnily enough. Now, what am I talking about? First off, the design of this it's a little bit fantasy, right? But essentially, this is a mace. Like, this is a mace. But if I just had a handle down to like here, that's a mace, man. So, in terms of an actual melee weapon, I think we have something quite special here, specifically because if you look at how much reach we have on this big, long haft, So first off, that's really, really cool. That did damage. Holy shit. Oh, I got you guys, sorry. No magic involved at all. It is a giant mace type head on a super duper long haft, meaning you have a lot of leverage and a lot of power. On top of that, we have 4 points here, which essentially turns it into something akin to a spear. Now, obviously we're going to be sharing that surface area, so it's not the most effective spear, but it's still a deadly spear, just in a general sense, right? So we get somewhat of a thrusting device, we get somewhat of a really big mace. Then even if we break it, right, let's just say, Saruman, your staff is broken, and for some reason it doesn't work and it only breaks in half, you still have a sick ass mace, just a regular sized mace. So that's 3 really, really, really good things about this design. Then there's also a 4th one. I have more. And that is, as you guys will see, it can essentially be used as a torch. This here has wick in it. And if you put fuel in it, it turns into a regular torch, like that you can carry around with fire on it, that can light your way. Again, if we have no magic, this is really good weapon design, because I want to bring this up because obviously it shares similarities to something like Sauron's mace in the films. It shares a lot of, I would say, like design cues, right? But then if we actually look a little bit deeper, it's very reminiscent of Orthanc, which is where Saruman is, right? It is very, very similar to the design in the movies. So you get all that mirroring of not only it being kind of like Sauron's mace, but it also looks like Orthanc. Then on top of that, without any of the magic, it's a super duper long mace. It's actually a regular style, fantasy style mace. If it gets broken in half, you have just a normal mace. Then you have a big torch if you need to light things on fire and put them in the middle because it holds them, and you have a torch to light your way. You see what I'm saying here? Like, in today's episode, we're not really exploring anything too crazy or anything like that, but it's just such a good design. And there's a lot of cool stuff here that people have probably never thought about, but I've thought about them because I'm just like that. So, let's hit another thing because it's really, really fun. See how far that went? If you're enjoying today's episode, you should consider subscribing. It is free after all. I was watching The Fellowship last night and there was one line that Saruman said to Gandalf that kind of annoyed me. I've just been stewing on it since I went to sleep. And that was when Gandalf calls the eagle and they're fighting on top of Orthanc, right? They're fighting and Gandalf jumps down, lands on the eagle and flies away. And as he's leaving, Saruman says, "So you have chosen death." And I thought to myself, that line doesn't really make sense because both Gandalf and Saruman are both Maya. They know they're both Maya, right? And they can't really die. If they die, they just go to what? Valinor, right? And then Eru Ilúvatar sends Gandalf back. So Gandalf can't die, and neither can Saruman. So why does he say, "So you have chosen death"? I think a better line in that particular situation would be like, so this is the path you've chosen. Or something like that. It just annoyed me last night. I was thinking about it. Let's see how our mace goes against whatever the f you call this. I don't care. Whatever this thing. It cut it in half. How did it do that? Did it split it in half? And it's a walking stick. I forgot to mention that, of course. Of course, it's also a walking stick on top of being a magic staff. I know we're also talking about the not magic part, but if you can't tell, the design's really, really good. This thing is sick. This thing is awesome. It works really, really cool. So, like we said, it's probably not going to be the best as a spear, but you definitely can use it as a spear for sure. And that's going to hurt. Sorry, I've waited a long time to have one of these. So I'm a little happy, I'm a little excited about this. Bonk. Fun. This is not a melee weapon, right? It is not, it's a magical staff. That's fine. That's its primary function, and it does it well, at least from what we see. But I'm gonna give it a tits rating anyway, because it's really, really cool, and I really like it. So, it is time to get into Tyrant's initial thoughts score. Starting off with comfort. Probably like a 9 out of 10. Like, this is the thing, is I don't actually know what material it's made out of. This one's made out of metal, perfectly comfortable. It's a little on the heavier side, but perfectly reasonable, 9 out of 10. Wieldability, well, you wield it exactly the same way you would with a staff. You've got a little bit of this weighted end, but it's like this is not a big deal. It's actually really not that heavy. It's not even nearly close to something like a Dane axe or a halberd. So, 10 out of 10. That's cool. Next up, design. I'm gonna do something I've never done before. 11 out of 10. It gets a fucking 11 out of 10 for a design because it's so perfect. I love it. And then last but not least, effectiveness. I'll probably say, because its primary function is a magic wizard staff, right? All these other things are not its primary function, but if we judge it on those other functions, it's still pretty good. And it has a lot of versatility. I'd probably give it something around maybe an 8. Yeah, I reckon an 8 for it, just because it's so versatile that it can be effective in a lot of different ways. And that gives us a final score of 38 out of 40 for Saruman's staff. A bit of a wild card. It's a really solid design. I like it. I had a lot of fun with today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your comments down below. Which one is your favorite staff? Mine is Gandalf's from the Hobbit movies, because it kind of looks like a fire, a flame, right? But that's just me. But let me know your thoughts down below. We have a torch, we have a thrusting device, we have a walking stick, we have a mace, and we have a big giant mace if we use the full effective reach of this thing. It's probably out of camera. I bent it a little bit because I stood on it. My bad. Anyway, that's gonna be all for today's episode. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. And if you want to support this channel, there'll be links down below to my Patreon. It really, really helps out the channel. It really, really helps out do these sorts of projects. But that's all for now. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, I'll see you next week in another episode. Have a good one.